just on looking at legacy mainstream media, then they have a totally different worldview than if they're on X and seeing the actual flow of argument.
Yes.
And the actual evidence.
Well, what was the pushback? Like, what happened when you guys released the Twitter files? Because I think the Twitter files is probably one of the most important things in this age of information for understanding the influence that government has on social media and on discourse. Because when we found out that that was the case, that the government was actually asking Twitter to remove posts that were factual,
all the time.
They did the same thing to Facebook. They had them throttle pieces of one of Tucker Carlson's show. They suppressed the views by 50%.
Yeah.
Of factual information.
Yeah, no, there was massive government interference in Twitter, but like Twitter welcomed it. That's important to all Twitter welcomed it. All Twitter was controlled by far left activists.
Yeah.
So they welcomed the government interference. They got paid by the government for it.
That's crazy. They got paid for their time, correct?
Yeah, they got paid millions of dollars for suppressing information.
So it's like build time.
And a bunch of it was like flat out illegal. Like the FBI had this sort of magic portal into the Twitter system, but all of the communication in that in this portal was auto deleted after 2 weeks, which breaks federal FOIA laws. So we don't even know what was said because it was all deleted after 2 weeks.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's so crazy. It's so crazy that people thought that was okay.
It's not super not okay.
No, it's super not okay. It's unconstitutional, and no one would want that. No one would want the government to have that kind of access.
Exactly.
And what was the blowback like when all that stuff got released? Like, you had to anticipate that there was going to be problems when you released that. Like, what happened?
Well, we got we did lose a lot of advertising dollars,
which is crazy because it's essentially like one of the most important forms of journalism is exposing government corruption.
Yes. I mean, this is the weird thing. It's like the left used to be big on exposing government corruption, but once they control the government, they no longer want to expose the government corruption.
Right. They want to pretend that the left-wing government's incapable of corruption because we're on the good side.
I think it may be just like, whoever's in power kind of doesn't want the other side heard. Because as you pointed out, like the left historically, up until, I don't know, maybe even 10 years ago or something like that, was the free speech party. And now it's the anti-free speech party. And they use words like, oh, well, we have to be against hate speech and misinformation, disinformation. But these are propaganda words. It's like, well, who's defining hate speech? Who's defining misinformation? The government? Do you really trust the government to make that definition? The whole point of the First Amendment is like, you do not trust the government.
Well, especially when they're wrong, and
yes,
there's no repercussions.
Yes.
Yeah, like with the whole lab leak theory, if you would get kicked off of YouTube if you even presented this argument that, hey, maybe that coronavirus lab where they're doing work on the exact same virus that got released.
Yep.
Hey, maybe that's where it came from since that's where the virus started. What do you think, guys?
Yeah.
They kick you right off of YouTube.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. It's like, do you think maybe it could have come from a place called the Novel Coronavirus Research Institute?
Yeah, like that Jon Stewart bit that he did on Colbert. That was amazing.
It's like, what does it say on the door again? Can I see your business card?
And to see Colbert like resisting it with every fiber of his being.
Like, what's going to happen to us?
He was totally cock blocking the bit to the point where Jon Stewart got off his chair and started walking around to try to take control. Man. Yeah, good on Jon.
And then the left tried to cancel Jon Stewart.
Of course.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he was right.
He's right.
And no apologies. No apologies. Yeah, and the whole Fauci thing, like any criticism of Fauci, it's like anti-science.
Fauci's a freaking demon, if you ask me.
If you read RFK's book, if the real Anthony Fauci, if that's correct, if the facts are in there, that's true, it's all referenced. You could find the sources, and on top of it, he's never been sued for that book, which doesn't make any sense. If he just made a bunch of lies up, he would get sued.
Yes.
So the guy's a monster.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think just looking at the lies that he told, the way he tried to define gain-of-function research to Rand Paul.
But I think maybe a lot of people out there don't realize Fauci funded the bioweapons research that was going on in Wuhan, and he bank shot it off. Like he can't send the money directly to China, so he just bank shot it off EcoHealth.
Right.
This like fake nonprofit in
Right.
the U.S. and they sent it to Wuhan.
And Obama put the skids on that. He stopped that in 2014.
Yes, I mean, so to give Obama some credit, he actually was like looking at this and say, hey, this is crazy, and he actually did stop the so-called gain of function, again, a propaganda word, because what is the function they're talking about? Death.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So if you actually use the right word, this is gain of function is death maximization.
Right.
Then you're like, hey guys, should we fund bioweapon research into death maximization? Because that's what gain of function means.
Yeah, it means
That's the function.
making
death.
a disease so that people can get it. Give it to people.
Yeah,
By the way,
what's that function again? Oh, the function is death? Oh, okay. So just
Also,
call it a death-maximizing virus.
if you're
That's
doing
insane.
research on that, and the idea behind this research is so that we can cure these things, how come you don't have a fucking cure?
Start with a cure. Cure first, disease second.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, you guys had no strategy for
Yeah.
dealing with it if it got out? And so you have to like make up this new vaccine in like record time, Operation Warp Speed, release it to the people with very little testing. It's fucking crazy.
It was crazy.
The whole thing's crazy, and
That was
everybody
like
just
Looney
went
Tunes,
along
man.
with it.
Looney Tunes next level.
Well, it's the psyop was fascinating to watch people step in
That's
line.
like one of the biggest ops of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time. And everybody got in line. And when you take it back to when pharmaceutical drug companies were able to advertise on media in the 1990s, that changed everything. We're one of 2 countries in the whole world that allows this.
Yeah.
And because of that, because we don't have socialized medicine, it's a complete profit scam.
Mm-hmm.
And they went hard, claiming all sorts of things that were never researched, all sorts of things that are not supported by data, like the fact that it would stop transmission, the fact that it would stop infection, the fact that it was safe for pregnant women, the fact that it was safe for children. All of it's bullshit.
Yes.
And they pushed it on the whole world. And if you didn't say that at a cocktail party, you were a pariah.
Yes.
And you were an anti-vaxxer.
It was totally psycho.
It was like being a Holocaust denier. You get kicked out of polite society.
Exactly.
Fucking bananas.
And I should say, like, I'm actually generally pro-vaccine overall. I think we should look at these things. But I believe in the scientific method.
Yes.
So you never blanket accept anything. You never blanket accept that any given medication or any given treatment is 100% good. You should always view it with some skepticism.
Especially when you're getting the data from pharmaceutical drug companies that have like a long history of
maybe
criminal
they've got a vested interest.
conduct.
Yes,
Yeah.
they've got a vested interest in the research. It's sort of like asking tobacco companies about, whether smoking is dangerous.
It's exactly the same thing.
Like, according to our scientists, everything's fine.
Yeah, they lied in court forever. The same thing they did with OxyContin when
Yeah.
they said that it wasn't addictive. Like, they have a long history of being full of shit if it makes them money. And that's what they do. That's their business.
They've literally lost multi-billion-dollar lawsuits up in this.
Massive. They're in you have amazing scientists, right? You have these clinical researchers, these people that develop these incredible drugs, and this is their job. Their job is to figure out some new way to cure something, some new way to stop things, and then you have the money people.
Sure.
And the problem is when you have this one thing that you would assume they're only doing it to help people, and then they have this other faction that they're all just numbers people, and all they give a fuck about is maximizing profits and making sure they literally have an obligation to their shareholders. They have to make the most amount of money possible, and so they just want to push it on everybody, like the Vioxx scandal. There's internal emails showing they knew there was going to be cardiovascular events. People were going to get strokes. And they're like, I think we're still going to do well. And they did. They made like $12 billion. They got fined $7 billion, and 50 to 60,000 people died.
Holy shit.
Yeah. One of them was a friend of mine, got a stroke.
And died.
He didn't die.
Okay.
He lived, but he was a really healthy guy.
But
He was an
was
athlete.
like not the same afterwards.
Yeah, he had knee problems, and he took Vioxx, and all of a sudden he was slurring his words, and he couldn't concentrate, and people were like, I think you're having a fucking stroke, and they took him to the hospital, and then you have this giant class action lawsuit, and then Vioxx gets pulled from the market, and they get sued, and the whole thing's fucking crazy, but there's a long history of this. I think, what is the number? Like 1/3 of the drugs that the FDA approves gets pulled? It's fucking bananas.
That is crazy.
That's crazy. You're shitty at 1/3 of the things that you say are okay, but yet you're trying to stop MDMA therapy for veterans?
Yeah, they should let MDMA through, honestly.